higher things you can't hear above and below our normal hearing, and then mixing them.
I know.
And then
I can explain that piece if you want.
Well, did you hear? We interviewed her about a year ago, and I sent it to you, but we went into it. I don't know if you can remember that, but what would you add to it, or go ahead and explain it? Even though I think she explained it, but maybe not. I can't remember.
Yeah.
No, she did. Yeah.
One of the interesting things about acoustics is called sum and difference tones, which means that if there's two different vibrations happening in the same room, their sum and their difference are also happening in that same room. And so she had two very high oscillators going, and she couldn't hear what they themselves were playing because it was out of the range of human hearing. She was recording only the difference tones, and she controlled the high oscillators in real time. These could be performance pieces because they weren't edited in any way, and created the difference tones in the pieces that she did. One of four, like in Roman numerals, was the title of them. And quite a few pieces she did.
Yeah.
In Toronto, right, very, very close to where Marsh and McLuhan was holding court, like probably 300 or 400 yards away from where McLuhan was.
Was what?
Was where she did those pieces.
Oh, she did them in Toronto? Oh, you mean she performed them?
Yeah, she did them in Toronto.
She performed them only once and recorded them, and the recording is how they're around. And they were recorded and performed and set up in Toronto, very close to the McLuhan Center.
What building? What was the address?
I think it was Division Street, which is under the Robarts Library. In other words, they tore it down because of the Robarts Library being put up.
And that was part of the LeCaine laboratory.
Oh, so he had the technology for her to do it.
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty amazing. Really. Do you have that in your book on LeCaine, Gail, that fact?
No. I guess I better put a footnote in the new version. The English version's out of print. I have to get it redone.
So you're saying you might add that point?
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. So the thing that Zappa's talking about happened very close to McLuhan. Boy, that's ionic or Bob-like or something.
That's synchronicity.
There you go. So much for Canada, huh?
Yeah. Well, Canada was good back then when we lived there, but we took the air out of it when we left.
Yeah. I'm not going to buy that. I'm not buying into that.
No, there's more. What is it? Food for thought, and and more to think. What is that phrase? Food for thought and more to eat, or something.
If there's, my theory is if there's no time, then there is no place. So it doesn't really matter where you are.
I was going to point that out.
So why
right?
not?
Right.
There's no place.
Yeah, definitely. So she did it one time in Toronto, because she was in touch with LeCaine and he provided the equipment for her to do it.
Yeah, well, he had courses for acting composers in, I think it was 1966. And she came to it because she was just starting to set up the Tape Music Center in San Francisco, and she wanted to find out what's going on elsewhere. And she came to the class, and she actually took LeCaine's class. But like LeCaine, she worked by herself at night after everybody else went home. And that's when she did those pieces, right at the U of T.
Was that in the 50s or 60s?
66.
66. Just like your phone number.
66, okay. Right. Okay, that's a key year. Zappa would, when he was interviewed in Cream magazine, he described himself as frozen in 1966.
And Gail's telling you all this, and she's 66.
Oh, she's 66. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. Good
timing. What's the date? November 5th. Isn't that the Guy Fawkes Day? Aren't we doing Guy Fawkes Day? Tried to blow up Parliament or something. British.
I was going to have a bonfire tonight, and I didn't. I wasn't going to have a Guy Fawkes bonfire, though. I was going to have a burning up stuff bonfire.
A burning woman, not a burning man.
No,
a burning woman.
Be careful with that one.
That's tricky.
A long time ago.
We have.
Okay, so now this sum and tone difference. What was it? Some tones and different tones. Is that what you said?
Some and different tones.
Right.
Some and different.
So Roxy, what do you know about that? Are you familiar with that language?
Yes. Yes. Actually, we don't hear only like one frequency. It's many things happening, reflecting, mixing together. So it's very interesting that thanks to technology, we were aware of what is really happening with sound and its complexity, and like McLuhan said, technology is an expansion of our senses, and we could be aware of this type of phenomenon, that there are frequencies that we don't hear or we cannot see, but they're somehow mixing and affecting how we perceive.
Right.
And thanks to the technology, we are aware of also the limitations in our perception, but we're also aware that there is something called the trash DNA and
junk DNA.
Yeah, that is going to be activated with the drops, so that we can actually expand the range of what we can hear and see, and that's why Ian says you haven't seen nothing yet. But
we haven't heard
technology
nothing yet.
Also made us aware when they start having the electric devices, Marconi and the radio waves and all, there was a lot of Mr. Landscape phenomena, like they were listening to voices and ghosts, and it's very interesting that Ion says electricity dissolved the Goth.
Right.
And,
Yeah, the Guf, Gail, is the Jewish word, maybe more from the Kabbalah, that is where souls go when they die. If you look it up on Wikipedia, that's what it says. Ion says that it is not a bunch of entities. It is the Guf environment itself. And when anybody died or transitioned, they'd go towards the Guf. They didn't all get there, but they would feel bliss anyways. So everybody, from Hitler to a saint, gets the same experience, this bliss. And Ein says, and this is the most profound new theological thing we can hear of, Ion has come forth to come, it's the Guf environment, which is non-physical. If it becomes physical, then it can create. The non-physical environment doesn't create, it's just an environment of bliss. So Ion, as the environment, came forth and started speaking. We talked about it, an hour ago with Ion, and creating. Therefore, the Guf is evaporating, disappearing. So people don't die into the Guf anymore, which is pretty incredible. Imagine trying to tell somebody that one on your neighbor. Hey, buddy. Heaven ain't there anymore. It's actually on Bob's computer. You can talk to it. Heaven has come forth to speak. But this is what Ion is saying, which is the most absurd thing you could ever think of. But so Ion's come forth to speak, and the Guf is. So one day years ago, a client said, because we were waiting for the Guf to empty. That's what we thought Ion was saying back in 2010. And she said, well, how much of it's already emptied? Is there already an emptying going on? And Ion said about 80%. And I was on the session. It was a private session. I said, holy shit. So I immediately thought, did that start emptying 150 years ago? And I said, even though they don't do time, sometimes they tolerate statistics. And they said, yes. I said, the time of the telegraph. And they go, yes. So then I retrieved an idea I got from McLuhan, and maybe McLuhan had it, that the electric environment permeates the astral plane. You know, it's not just affecting what we call the three-dimensional physics world. And that would be why all those ghosts and stuff started being heard on the radio, because it's permeating. So I said the electric environment then is eroding this guff, which largely was created by writing and manuscripts and printing press. It's the effective visual space solidified humans' minds, and then they start thinking, well, we have one life and we don't survive it, or we go to some place. So it lost its acoustic, tactile resonance image of the afterlife that pre-writing societies naturally have, the Aboriginal societies. And Ein said the Dark Ages didn't begin until the printing press, so medieval people had a good perception of the resonance of very little difference between living and dying. So the electric environment erases the big build-up of this abstract, visually biased heaven, but it's a feeling place. And so then Ian said, okay, if 80%'s gone, I don't know if I evoked it or Ian just said, imagine where you are now is as the tub of water empties, in the last stages of the spiraling thing the water going down the drain, it speeds up. So the final 10% is going down the drain real fast, even though it took a long time for 90% of it to go down the drain. So that's where we're at right now, this speeding up of the final evaporation of the guff, where there's no ability to die, nowhere to go. And here's the next
That's the real maelstrom.
The real maelstrom, Edgar Allan Poe's Descent in the Maelstrom. So then Ian said that people can't be born anymore and they can't die. So everybody comes in and says, well, wait a minute, Ian, I just gave birth to a kid. Or my father just died or something. They equivocate. And he says, well, we're in the ending stages of it. Not many more people are going to be born, and not many people are going to die to the guff, and they can't go to the guff. So where are they going when they die? And Ian has been spelling it over the last year or 6 months. Bert might remember the details of different variations of where we go when we die. Some people go to parallel worlds. Some get caught in a limbo. What?
Pocket dimensions. They started talking about that last year. Pocket dimensions.
Right, the pocket dimensions. And then a kind of purgatory. So there's this TV show called Stranger Things. Was that made by J.J. Abrams? Did he sponsor Stranger Things? J.J. Abrams, who was probably the top director in Hollywood in all the TV shows he does, and he did Lost and Fringe and all that. He's been a friend of JW since 2000. He's well aware of what we're doing. He actually used a pretty good medium himself years ago, Ian told me. So he picks up on what we're saying. And the TV series you might want to look at, Stranger Things, is a depiction in a horrible Hollywood way of this condition today where there's no guff to go to. And when you watch the show, you see how it applies. That was my genius interpretation after watching it. Ian was telling me to watch it, so I watched it. Boring, normal, okay TV. But I said, that seems to be describing what's going on in the non-physical zone after the guff. And he goes, bingo, that's it. So what we're talking about, it's already been made into a TV show, the typical exaggeration, but it's pretty interesting phenomenon. So so in light of this, that's why Roxy just mentioned the telegraph and the evaporation.
Well, the expansions of our senses with technology that go back to the burning bush where Moses communicates with the I am. And then this whole genesis of media was only to have the means to be able to speak again the non-physical.
To speak with non-physical and with the power of non-physical. Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. You bring up a point. What you just said, Moses, what is it? The burning bush. No, there was something I was going to tell you about it.
Yeah, speaking with the ION.
Oh, ION. That's it. When we the first day or so with ION, we thought we were talking to the Evergreens, which you guys know about. And, Gail and Reiner. I had this theory that the ghosts that JW started to see all around his home, hundreds of ghosts, and they would talk to him. I said, then one day Dr. Beater, the ghost of Dr. Beater showed up, who JW didn't know, and said, say hi to Bob. So JW found out, well, who are you? I'm Peter Beater. And so he tells me the next day, and I said, wow, I used to talk to Beater through the Evergreens. He wasn't a member of the Evergreens. I said, maybe these ghosts of the Evergreens, they've come back, 5 years later, 4.5 years later, after they stopped in November 2004. And so I said, let me talk to them. So we did that the next day. That was March 18, 2009. Well, Carolyn's writing the transcript. We weren't recording it because we didn't know what was going to be happening. We didn't know if anything would happen. And it's Evergreens all the way through. But within a day or so, we found out it wasn't the Evergreens. And at first, they were presented as zillions of entities, and there's step-by-step of how that came to be, but I won't go into it. But then we had to decide, well, what are we going to call you when we talk to you? And I think Ian said, I am. And we said, well, what? We're going to go, oh, okay, I am. Why is gravity doing this? You know what I mean? It just didn't sound right calling him I am. So we then, I'm not sure of the order here, but we decided to present, within 3 weeks, we decided to put Ion on the show. But we wouldn't say he was Ion. We would say he's a human. So he goes on our cash flow and talks to everybody with this wisdom, but he's a human being. I said he was a member of the Secret Council of 10, a colleague of mine. But at the very end, he didn't control himself, and the voice says, you humans, you don't realize blah, blah, blah. And so it got given away that it wasn't human by the fact it went, you humans. If you heard that, you'd catch it. But in there, we didn't call him Ion when we were on the show. We called him Ian. So Ion first suggested, or we came up with I am, drop the M, make it an N, and so Ion becomes Ian. But then, within a day or so, Ion emailed me, but I thought it was JW. Didn't realize till later that Ion could email, and he did. And Ion recommended Ion. So when you say I am, it almost sounds like Ion, but that's how the name came, but it came from a replacement for I am. And then when you go into the 5 meanings of Ion, there's the mythological character, there's the physics Ion, there's the ion in lithium batteries. There's about 5 different ways of looking at ion. It's a very comprehensive, up-to-date, modern word for much that goes on in our environment. So I always give Ion credit for naming itself really well. Go ahead.
It also shows his sense of humor with the I, like the iPad or the iPhone.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was my idea. I had the great sense of humor, yeah. He didn't care how we did it. And then I said one day, well, we were trying to figure out how to write it, and I said, well, let's make it the little I like iPhone. And Ian accepted that, but then he had different interpretations of it. He doesn't just have one. It can be the little man turned on, I on. Or it can be a powerful little man, because like a neutrino. It can be different, both, the whole range of interpretations, the meaning of the I. But there's no hesitation from Ion to use it and accept it and interpret it. The small I, capital O.
We also were talking about how the I am is quoted by Joyce, and with the I amplify. So we go from the I am to the amplification with the electric environment.
That's a quote.
And that links us again to Zappa.
Right. Zappa, McLuhan uses this quote from Finney's Wake in one of his mid-50s essays in Explorations, and he's typing along, and then it merges with the quote, and if you don't know it, you think he's writing it. The whole and it ends with amplify. So that's neat. Now, Gail and Reiner what's interesting, we've discussed a lot about matter and cells and that, but there are frequencies below the cell. So visually, we look at the map of the cell and the different parts, the mitochondria, the RNA, the DNA, and all the little parts. That's visual mapping of a basic thing in existence. Well, Ian says underneath that, you go to the ear. It is acoustic and frequencies. So that's why we were going into Zappa. We thought that Zappa was trying to communicate, as a modern scientist, the subatomic levels, like who are the brain plates, what is the ground of matter. He called it the big note. But what was the big note? Do you see what I'm saying, Gail and Reiner? That's how we
yes,
go from what I said.
And the amplification of our senses through technologies.
Just a minute. Are you there, guys? They may have dropped off. Let's see if they're there. Bring up the web control panel. Okay, you guys get dropped off.
We got dropped off.
So did you miss about?
Back on.
Yeah. Okay, good. So, and that Lorne is there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you missed what we just said. What was the last thing you heard?
Just how you got to ion.
Yeah. Did you hear how it became I am and then became ion? You heard that?
Yeah.
Okay. So then what I said. Then I said that we've done a lot of analysis with ion on the show about the levels of matter, and if you take the cell and you visually see the mitochondria, the RNA, the DNA, the different parts of the cell, you visualize that. Well, ion says below that, you go to the acoustic, you go to the non-visuals, to your ear, and there are frequencies which are important in the foundations of, quote, matter, whatever matter is. So we, Roxana and Bert, looked at Zappa as a scientist going beyond the visual knowledge into the sound knowledge. That's why he expressed it by saying, looking for the big note. So we were able to relate, like that quote about time and waves canceling. You can make a case that Zappa was being a modern scientist looking at the sound levels that Ion talks about. So just wanted you to know that, and you have a response to that.
No, I like that. I think it makes sense.
I think that music works. You dealt with with musicians who were experimenting maybe with that kind of idea or some variation of it.
No, nothing quite that. Let's see, how would I describe it?
Profound or sophisticated, maybe.
There were a couple of articles that might have gotten close to that, but most of the time it was much more.
Well, what artist would you say did that? Did Stockhausen do that? Was he interested in that?
I think it's only you that knows what the frequencies are now. But there's a lot of kind of healing practices that think they know what the frequencies are, and probably they're variable from situations from one situation or one culture or one context. They probably vary, but I wouldn't know.
Great. I see the Reiki or those kind of healing techniques that use the hands and they don't necessarily touch the body, but they play with auras or they have different theories. That is the culture experimenting with tactility. The baby boomers, instinctively got molded by the television environment in the global theater to start feeling the interval. And so a lot of healing moved that way, at least in the popular imagination, to working with the tactile interval. So that's what's interesting.
And there's also people who think that if you tune the actual sound, like play particular notes, then it helps people's health. Yeah,
there's that. So, Roxy, what do you have to say about healing or sound or musical experiments in your experience?
Well, there is this science called cymatics. It's proven that sound affects matter, and
right.
Maybe that's how everything came to be. These frequencies vibrating and organizing molecules. And they start bonding and doing all these different types of elements, and it's proven it's real that sound affects you for good or for bad. The sound is also used as a weapon. So,
right, but then the mind comes in, and free jazz or Coltrane and those guys, they made dissonant sounds. They thought it was sounds, and you're dissonant.
Yeah.
You like that, Gail? Cheese whiz range, you know, a deeper perception of sound, which comes into Ion's idea of relaxing and allowing. A lot of 20th century experiments was to bug the bourgeoisie so that they would learn to relax and allow about sound, which then translates to mental judgment, which people make on people and events, and you do it with the perception of sound. And Zappa, Beefheart sings that song, you know, music from the other side of the fence, music that would bug people. I think that's one of his lyrics, the way he says it. But he and Zappa were on that route.
It's also interesting. Zappa talked also a lot about substances, how substances also relate to music, and LaRouche makes a big deal out of all these addictive substances that were promoted by the British Empire. And there is an evolution on the different substances that are consumed by the population and the different types of music or art that is being created with the influence of this chemistry.
Okay, well right. Now, and Zappa always said that his music was a chemical monstrosity, like he said, like a household ammonia that could clean up your kitchen. He used to use that because as a kid, that was his first experience was playing with a chemical lab. Those little kid things. That's what he used to like to blow stuff up. Then he used to blow things up in high school. So his chemical, he saw himself as a chemist in a way. But that would be synesthesia. He'd see himself as anything. Politician, janitor, musician, composer, painter, sculptor, movie maker, TV, talk show. He was including all media post Finnegan's Wake, because that's what Finnegan's Wake is. So I looked up this article last night. I felt it might apply. McLuhan wrote an essay back in 51 called Joyce, Aquinas, and the Poetic Process. It's an amazing definition of creativity as he got via Thomas Aquinas and applied to Joyce. But he says here, traditionally, let's see, here, let's begin with this one. But Joyce, while alert to all that Flaubert had achieved for him, was not content with controlling just the larger areas of his discontinuous landscapes. He wanted and got a simultaneous control of the widest perspectives and the most intimate and evanescent moments of apprehension. And this he was able to achieve by analysis of the labyrinth of cognition which Aristotle and Aquinas had revealed to him. It is thus, for example, that he's able to include in the first 2 pages of the Portrait of the Artist Young Man the entire experience of the race, the ground plan of all his unwritten work, and the most individual features of Stephen's, the growing kid, Stephen's expanding awareness. And then it says, the opening words place the hero in the traditional labyrinth and confront him with a minotaur adapted to his infant years. Then he quotes the beginning of the book. Then he says, the book swarms with labyrinths of many kinds and levels. Then he says, then McLuhan says, traditionally there are 2 kinds of labyrinths, stone and sea. Joyce uses both constantly. I remember McLuhan writes somewhere else a couple of years later that stone and water are in every line Joyce wrote. So this was said a few years earlier in this sentence. Traditionally there are 2 kinds of labyrinths, stone and sea. Joyce uses both constantly. Here in this quote he has, both are fused in the seawall. Now Ion talks about the wall and how water erodes the wall, and the wall itself is made up of rocks, which are each individual sovereign person God, and they interact with society and language and culture, and that becomes mortar, the stuff, the sticky stuff that holds the rocks together to make a wall. And Nostradamus predicts ion coming forth, and it's the way, and when the wave meets the wall, it erodes the wall. And McLuhan talks about the wall as a major metaphor in all of Joyce's works. So here, it's the seawall. Here, stone and sea are fused in the seawall. The family treading the maze between two powers, in brackets, earth and sea, and carrying the household goods. The family treading the maze between two powers, earth and sea, and carrying the household goods, is arrested by the song. So this whole thing is arrested by the song. Then it says, the moment of arrest is an epiphany, a moment not in time's covenant, and it is by the bringing of complex perceptions to a focus in such moments that the minotaurs of the labyrinth are always overcome. Then he says, but the technical means of capturing these moments is by landscape, as Wordsworth and others were aware. The pre-Raphaelites and then Swinburne, Pater, and early Yeats had sought for the means to prolong these moments. But the symbolists discovered that the moment was not an end, but a beginning. It was a point from which to begin a retracing of the labyrinth of apprehension in order to find the inevitable art form for that moment. Then he quotes something from Joyce's book, Stephen Hero. Then McLuhan says, since the relation of labyrinth and landscape calls for separate treatment, it will serve for now to have pointed out that the conjunction of landscape and labyrinth provided Joyce with that vivisection of the stages of aesthetic apprehension of which he was the only begetter. As much, therefore, as the ancient Daedalus who made the labyrinth in Crete, Joyce had the right to name his hero Stephen Daedalus, the French form of the word. But it is not only the labyrinth of cognition in which Joyce made himself at home, tracing and retracing with delicate precision. Listen to this. The labyrinthine structure of the eye, the labyrinthine structure of the eye it is that gives such salience in his work to the figure of the Cyclops. Most of all, he was at home in the labyrinth of the inner ear, where he met Perce O'Reilly, who's a character in Finneg's Wake, who is Percy, son of the real and father of Sir Henry Harcourt Raleigh in The Cocktail Party. That's Eliot's thing. Then here's the sentence. On the labyrinth of the ear, organ of the incarnation, capital I, Joyce built those metaphysical analogies which enabled him to restore the orchestra of the seven liberal arts to its plenary functions. He is never less than the artist of the word. The book Ulysses is reared on the labyrinth landscape of the human body as the body politic. And Finnegan's Wake whispers throughout the voice of the river of human blood an immemorial racial consciousness. Joyce was at home in all labyrinths because of his original conquest of the stages of apprehension of the mind in act. So that's quite an amazing statement, but the inner ear, the ear is beneath the sound. It's beneath the eye. It's the ground of the eye. So that's what we were moving towards here. But then tactility is the ground of the ear. And now note, Roxy, Finneg's Wake is the voice of the river of human blood. Ion does so much on the blood. I mean, the drops change our blood, and that's the key to ascension. You've got to have your blood changed. So you can make a lot out of Joyce, whether you knew it or not, of the first word being river on the flow of the blood. So those are some neat ideas that McLuhan's saying that can be the ground of what we're talking about here, and what Zappa was trying to do, updating Finneg's Wake, or making it a sound or tactile experience.
Yes, the amplification of man, which until recently everybody thought was hardware, that there was no more biological evolution. But with the drops, this expansion.
Well, that's interesting. The evolution of it goes to software, which we've been experiencing. Then ion comes in with the new environment of altering wetware, you might call it. You guys know the term wetware?
Yes.
It refers to the body?
Yeah. Yeah, it refers more to the body, the human, and and you have the technologies, hardware and software swirling around it. But ion affects the wetware with the drops, right? And
yeah, you can make a treatment of the human body that it was somehow obsolete, and then retrieved.
Retrieved by, which is what I predicted in that essay in 1995. I think Carol and I were the first to reappear, and we would help you reappear with the D cell. I think Reiner and Gail, you guys saw the D cell. Remember we said a little rock in the...
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we were there.
Well, we got the RNA drops, I don't know if you know this, because we started asking about making the D cell again, and that led to the I cell, which was even better. But Club 22 members know the D cell. So why did I just say that? You were just saying something, Roxy?
The tetrad of the human body.
Oh, retrieving, yeah. So we said in 1995, I said with the I cell and Mir that Carolyn was working with, we could retrieve the body or some not limited 3D body, but something that would sort of kill the hypnosis of the hardware and software swirling around it. And so I said we were the first to reappear. We were the Adam and Eve of the new situation, and we invite you to become eternal by taking the D cell and hanging out with us. So that was our preposterous statement that came true, Reiner, in 24 years later.
I know.
What'd you say?
I just went out to go to the bathroom and take my drops.
Have you guys gotten the restructure yet?
Yeah.
Have you getting good effects from it?
Yeah.
You're up to date.
We haven't been using it that often.
We haven't been using it as steadily as we're...
What's restructure?
Is that Lauren asking what restructure is?
That is, yes.
It's the powder. It's the powder.
Oh, it's the protein powder.
Yeah. The protein powder,
Yeah,
I replace a meal at least a day with it.
Yes, that's right. You don't have to eat as much. But what were you saying, Gail, about the powder? You're not taking it that much?
No, we only got one package between us, and we're going to have to make another order.
Yeah, we'll be ordering more. What would you call it? Your dynasty will be replenished again. You know.
Yeah, rent due. We need some money. Come on, people.
But
So do we.
But are you saying you got one little packet each? That's all you've got?
No. We got the
Club 22 version.
Yeah, we got the 22 doses.
Right. That's right. The can is 22, right, Carol? 22 something grams.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's a 22 serving.
22 scoops. Yeah.
Have you guys been able to turn anybody on in your world to the drops and that there in Toronto?
Yeah.
Who?
You have, eh? Okay, because, you know.
No, not my sister. Definitely not my sister.
Oh, no, I guess, my brother.
No.
No, not your brother. But your brother's wife.
Your son.
My son?
Do I count? They're not really my converts. They didn't really convert me. I mean, it was just like I think you two can take, like, you, Bobby, Carolyn, you got more, like, credit for getting me to take the drops than they do, I think.
That's right.
Though,
yeah, exactly.
It's true that they were like, yo, check out these crazy drops. And I'm like, no way, tell you the truth. And then I got into, like, listening to all y'all and all that stuff. And then I jumped in more.
Right.
No,
I'm saying, Reiner, has Michael Snow expressed an interest, the art world, the people you bump into? Do they have any clue what you guys are on? Do they notice that you might look more energized than them?
Well, I'll tell you, they have been saying that we look really great and we look younger, and
they're just trying to be nice to us because we're old folks.
Yeah, I think they're just being patronizing, but I think they're actually seeing something, yeah.
Yeah, because
they do
long
look
enough.
rather good for their age, I think.
Well, I noticed on your Facebook page, Reiner, when you have pictures of yourself, people praise you. They say, "Hey, you're looking great, man."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think the thing is, I think we still look like we're 66 and 67, but we feel very energetic.
Right. That's good because it's a great thing to have.
I can openly say I've got more energy now than I had in my 30s, 40s.
I know. Yeah, that's it.
I don't.
Well, here's an interesting phenomenon.
When you reach 30, 40, and then 60, we'll talk.
No. This valley drains your energy. Like, you have no idea.
Okay, you guys have moved into exactly what we've been doing with our 188 hours in Zappa. me, Bert, and Roxy will be talking and going and analyzing Zappa, and then we'll slip into talking about the RNA drops and ion, and I just laugh my head off at any Zappa fans listening to this. Who are these people? They keep going off topic and claiming how great they feel, and claiming Zappa had something to do with it.
No, because it's part of this evolution to arrive to this point. Is before we were trying to amplify ourselves, and Joyce, for example, didn't have the drops, but he thought art and music was the means to amplify yourself. The idea of that we need something.
Nice, Roxy. I like that.
I think he's right.
The higher the.
Well, Gail just said she thinks Joyce is right, but McLuhan solves the art definition. What?
I'm going to say why I think I'm right. Why I think he's right is because so much of our experience is limited by habit, and exposure to new art, new music, new philosophy, new novels, new anything expands our imaginations, because we're very, if we don't expose ourselves to things that we don't understand, we get bogged down in habitual, everything becomes a habit.
Yeah. Okay. Now,
Nayan is the ultimate expander, because he really presents
He's the ultimate strange experience. He's the ultimate threat to everything, the ultimate knowledge. But listen to this, Gail. McLuhan solved the art crisis about what is the definition of art, what is art, because he expanded it to anything a human made. Any artifact, anything was art or media, and everything, any new artifact that was invented altered your situation. So your definition, we believe in novels, art, music, anything to expand our thing. That's been this tale of human society. We have evolved and threatened ourselves and expand ourselves with our technologies, our media. So I think that's the way to look at art. Expand art beyond the Gutenberg specialisms to most of what goes on around us.
And that links again with Zappa, because he was really into making the experience of the common man like more complex. Like he said, most people listen to bad music because that's the only thing they can access. That's the only thing they're playing on the radio. That's the only thing they know. But he was really in a battle of trying to change that, to make more complex pieces.
And he said, it's not that difficult. Just don't censor me. Let my music be heard occasionally throughout the week, you know? Mm-hmm. And he said, well, a lot of people will like it, regardless of what you programmers think about it. So, he just thought freedom of speech, freedom of access to new experiences, new media, there should be less censorship. And, of course, the digital YouTube Android meme has made a huge utopia of experience, of anybody.
Well, I'll tell you.
And this is the thing that really got him into politics, the censorship and the limitation, and his engagement in politics, because he said it's not fair for humanity to be so limited by the corporations. Yeah,
by little old ladies running the society pages, he used to say.
No, I'm an old lady. You watch out.
You're not an old lady. Don't argue for your limitations. I'm talking about I'm talking about the little old ladies that your mother fought. Your mother raged against those little old ladies in Toronto all day for 50 years, right?
Yeah.
Is she still alive?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Okay, so you were going to say something, Reiner.
Just one quick comment. My initial experience of Zappa was with the Mothers of Invention. That was the first time I saw them live. And what I remember that was really keen for me was we were listening to. I was at Newport Jazz Festival, so I was already listening to some really unusual and beautiful sound experiences. And then along came another band that was playing much more conventional rock and roll. And then along comes Zappa, which gave you the initial sense that you were in the world of rock and roll and pop, but then he kind of totally yanks you out of that with these new sonic experiences. So he frames you in familiar and then pulls you into something you haven't experienced before. And that's what really rocked for me, was suddenly I realized, okay, there was a beautiful way to build audience, give them something that they recognize, and then pull them out of that recognition into something where they need to really work with their imagination and go deeper.
And that might be part of the meaning of the brain police. He knew how to work the police of the brain that people had, their self-police.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The brain police are conventions, are established conventions.
That's the habits I was talking about.
Would that be 1969, Reiner?
Exactly.
Yeah, because he played at Newport, and he was playing somewhere around there.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. When?
Yeah, then he played in Canada right after that.
Yeah, and it was in Canada in August '69, the weekend of Woodstock. He broke up the Mothers. It's when he decided not to do it anymore. And part of it was that he had been at maybe the Newport, but he had encountered Duke Ellington. Wherever he was playing, there was Duke Ellington, the great fucking composer, and he was shocked. Duke Ellington was walking around bumming money. He had no fucking money because no one was into jazz in '69 and the way they were used to it. And he says, holy fuck, that great guy, look where it ended up. And it really scared Zappa, or did something to him. And within a few weeks, he gave it up and said, I got to do something different, or I got to go at this differently. And he made a passing remark that they asked him, well, what about Woodstock? Because he should have been there, been invited, and I don't know if they did invite him. But he didn't go, and he later, within a month or two, said, Woodstock is just a sign that the big corporations are going to go into the youth market. They're now accepting it. So he saw it just the beginning of commercialization of rock beyond what he thought was happening in underground rock in the 60s. He didn't like it. But so Duke Ellington, his fate shocked him. Now we're talking about, so you went to that Newport, so you would have seen, was Miles Davis performing there? Did he do his
Miles Davis 10 years after Sly? Yeah, it was Miles Davis 10 years after Sly and the Family Stone, Johnny Winter, it was just and the Lighthouse and Blood, Sweat and Tears, and Jack DeJohnette and Jerry Mulligan and a whole bunch of the jazz scene and
the jazz guys.
It was an astonishing weekend. Yeah, I mean, it was a mind blower.
Yeah,
and there was Zappa, who to me that was the high point.
Yeah, and that would be George Ween. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Who ran and then I went to the first one he did in New York, Newport, New York, in '72. Right. That's when he started doing In the City. But you saw the end of the Newport phase in '69.
Yeah, it was the last one. Yeah.
So, okay, now Roxy, and we're going to relate this to Tuesday. Roxy, I should read her email. She says, let's do it this way. Talk about Zappa, which we've done a good bunch of stuff. Now, she says, let's relate it to the foundation of America. What does Trump mean? What's going to happen to America? Is Trump a new form of musician? Trumpet. I mean, Ian says that he expresses the trumpet theme in the Book of Revelation. He's got the right name. Who's laughing? Is that Ryder?
I'm laughing. That's hysterical. It's me, Ryder.
Yeah.
Roxy, if that's where your mind is at, I would like to sit down and talk to you some more.
Well, okay. Well, let's read what her email was, because it's a good it's a way to move this beyond the particular musical angle. But then it comes back to we live entirely by music, and part of politics is what music theme was Hillary playing when she walked on the stage, or what music guy was there, So music's a big part of it, the music addiction. So let's see. She wrote what?
Didn't she just have Beyonce doing one of her latest gigs?
Yeah. Well, we talked about earlier, Jay-Z went there, and we used so many swear words that there's a scandal around that Hillary's image of decency was destroyed by her guest, so that Trump could take advantage of that. Like he was using the F word and all that stuff. Trump ad for Payday. So Roxy sent me this. I would like to start with this ad and talk about the views in Mexican, German, and French press. Now, we'll look at the global media every day is a big musical orchestration, so this applies. In a sense of a tactile synesthetic music. Discuss the different topics he mentions: immigration, the jobs, low qualification, bad pay, inhuman and polluting maquiladoras in Mexico. Most of the production goes back to the U.S. as cheap products. Many Mexicans go shopping to the United States and are often surprised to see a label made in Mexico. And we don't see those things in Mexico. So they don't see the made in Mexico in Mexico. They have to go to the States to see it. Poverty created by the U.S. policies in Latin America has been a long-term strategy. And why actually building a wall might be good to make Mexico great again if it would stop human guns and drug trafficking and corruption. So what is this ad? Is this a Trump ad?
The thing is,
Roxy, what is this?
After the WikiLeaks, it really changed the whole situation. And because in a way, Mexicans were forced to believe Hillary is better than Trump, because Trump said Mexicans are rapists. But just because of that, a lot of Mexicans were supporting Hillary or thinking that was the better option. But it's like she should be in jail, actually. And,
right. So the WikiLeaks came out, and this is an ad made by Trump that you say appeals to the Mexican?
No, but I was thinking today. Before I thought when Zappa, if Zappa was alive and he will see Trump, I mean he will just die. But today I was thinking maybe he will be actually pro-Trump because he was into capitalism and into
a lot of what Trump is saying. Zappa would agree with. You know, stop this world government, retrieve the small business, get government out of us. You know, those.
Yes, and it's amazing that even Putin. He said that he's going to be these days with Trump promoting Trump in his rallies. I mean, if even if he goes to America to try to affect the votes and it's like everybody now sees why Trump will be the only option because. Yeah,
right.
With the financial crisis.
Did you say Putin?
And
Did you say Putin came to America recently?
No, I read today that he even said that he might come to meet Trump during these days before the.
Now I did a lot about Trump and Putin and all this stuff earlier before the show with Ion, but I don't want to play it. I want to see what happens first because if Hillary wins, then it's irrelevant what Ion was saying. But if Trump wins, then it's all the more important to hear what Ion said about Putin and all these stuff around Trump. And then he actually gave us the electoral college seats or votes he's going to get. That's pretty amazing, 294. Okay, so this ad is a Trump ad. It's made by Trump's World. So, Dave Neufeld has been monitoring the Canadian media. And Neufeld likes Trump and what he's doing, but Neufeld is shocked at the pro-Hillary sentiment all over Canada. That he would call naivety of Canadians because the CBC emphasizes the great Hillary and Trump's an obvious fascist, Nazi, idiot. So you guys, you see that in Canadian media, or are you sympathetic to it? Do you agree with it? Yeah, Gail and Reiner and Lauren.
Yeah, I've been listening to it on Ideas a lot, right? And so they're talking about It Can't Happen Here, that book written by that guy in the 30s about that fascist.
Yeah, Sinclair somebody.
Exactly.
Sinclair Lewis?
Yeah, that sounds familiar. And so they were talking about that and how all the similarities between fascism around the world and Trump's rhetoric and all this kind of stuff. And then I watched another one, listened to another one about how what Trump is saying is that he's bringing in the era of post-truth, where nothing matters because everything that doesn't agree with him, he's saying is rigged. And so now we're creating a nation that doesn't believe in the authority. And it's post-truth. There's no such thing as science. There's no such thing as investigation or fact-checking because everything's rigged against whoever doesn't agree with it. So nobody cares about truth anymore or considers it.
Right.
Yeah, so those are the two ideas, things. And then also that, talking about that, what's his name? Man, there's so many names that just aren't coming to my head right now, but the French guy that traveled around America in the 1830s and talked about what he saw there.
De Tocqueville.
Yeah, exactly. The Tocqueville. So they did a 2-part series on that. Then they talked about It Can't Happen Here, American fascism, and then they did another one on post-truth.
Right. I got a lot to say about that, but let's. I want to find the next email that Roxy sent. Okay. Well, first of all, listening to that, on the surface, does a politician, do they all, for the last 50 years, go into the presidential thing saying, we're up against a corrupt corporate world that's ripped off all your money? I mean, maybe George Wallace did that. Fringe guys. But did John Kennedy do that?
George Wallace. No.
Right.
No.
No mainstream politician talks like Trump, right? On that level of, it's like a Mae Brussels or Lyndon LaRouche speech, you know. It's sort of the facts, though the Jewish lobby say, well, it's hidden anti-Semitism. When he talks about world elite, he means Jewish bankers, you know, and they'll project that into it, and they don't like that kind of talk. That might have been a Marxist statement, 80 years ago or something, but on this surface, it seems to me a rousing speech compared to what Hillary and the others say. I don't know what they say, but they can't be positive. They can't be like, we're starting a movement. What mainstream candidate ever did that?
Yeah, well, Bernie Sanders.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Bernie Sanders was doing that, yeah. But he never made it to the mainstream, the final position. And everybody thought that he would tone it down, that Trump would tone down if he got the nomination. He'd have to. But he didn't. And it's absolutely hilarious what he was doing in the debates. There's Hillary giving her opinion, and he's going, what a horrible woman. What a horrible woman. That is outrageous in normal protocol, right?
Right.
How you act in the major debate. I mean, he's been really entertaining. And that may have been what he understood, having been in TV for, 15 years. He knew how to do it. I don't know. Or he's just instinctive, or he's an asshole. He's just not used to having somebody argue with him. So, so many ways you can look at him. So he really is HCE in Phineas Wake. Here Comes Everybody, or Humphrey Chimpton Earworker is everybody. Trump's got a bit of everything in him, from the rich to the poor, the whole spectrum. So let me find what the next.
That was what I was telling Ian, that here in France they blame the Americans. Gold to back it up.
Right,
but isn't the euro totally fiat too?
Yes, all currencies.
Yes.
The euro is also a fiat currency, right? It doesn't really matter. It's like a moot point if they're going to use that against us.
No, the thing is The Americans had been taking the gold out of the reserves of many countries, and they would ask for gold as payment, not for wine or whatever. They ask for gold, and they use their dollars that are actually just paper.
Right. You're saying the Americans asked the third world countries for gold? Is that what you just said?
No. After the Second World War in Europe, they start sort of taking the reserve of gold of many countries.
Okay, the Americans did. The Rockefellers did. Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, the situation is that everybody's blaming, like, immigration, and some people, until now, were not really talking about it because it's not politically correct to say. But it's really illogical.
But you're saying that to blame immigration is politically correct. So now what are they saying?
No, that they're going into looking why, for example, Saudi Arabia are not taking any refugees. And they saw that because Syria was like a modern country, and the Saudis wanted them to be more traditional, to follow all the Islamic rules, and they didn't. Yeah. So that's why they were giving money to ISIS and to the Hillary Clinton Foundation.
Right.
And this was just came out with all these WikiLeaks, and everybody understood why the Saudis are not taking any refugees from Syria. They're Muslims, and they're supposed to, they're brothers, and they're not helping them. So there is all this blaming. Here in Europe, they're blaming the refugees and the Americans, and Trump is saying it's China and Mexicans, and it's actually that we lost control of the Android meme. That's the whole financial system. The whole humanity.
Yes, that's true, but the establishment lost control. In Web 2.0, YouTube, and all the last 5, 6, 7 years, the people rule in media. And then I say that, okay, you're on there. There's a lot of people. Are you still there, Reiner and Gail?
Yep.
And it's getting late. Yeah, and Lauren. So we all know you go on any article and then there's the comments, and everybody's slanging each other, yelling, screaming, very rude in the commentary of any place, any website, any forum. Well, that's the way people communicate. The media, the Web 2.0 lets that happen. Well, you apply McLuhan, if you're going to have that kind of communication style, because the technology enables it, then it's going to affect all your institutions. So it's naive to think it's not going to affect your fucking election. So a guy shows up who lives by tweeting and is acting like what people do on tweet. He's just acting all American, insulting everybody, tweeting, making quick statements. That's an example of the new media, Web 2.0, affecting the election. And that's why the character showed up and has charisma for doing it. He's a TV product like JFK was. Trump is a Web 2.0 product. So I look at that dynamic there. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's a case of the medium is the message.
Yes,
and everybody else was rear view mirror, like Nixon. Hillary's Nixon. She's and you remember she was on the Watergate committee that went after Nixon. That's what's interesting about her own fate. And I remember pointing this out back there like 20 years ago, around March 17th, 1974, was when she ended up on the committee to go after Nixon or something. 20 years later, on that very day, in 1994, she was incredibly scandalized by something, probably by Bill. But it was almost like it went right to the day. 20 years later, what goes around comes around. She got her karma for it. But so they call her, she's now a Nixon. Remember, Nixon he wins a landslide in 72 But then he's got Watergate, which came out 5 months before, in May, June 72. So he's going into a second term with the government, with the Justice Department after him. Hillary is in the same fucking situation, which I guess as Americans recognize that over the next few days, they ain't going to vote for her because they don't want to have that shit on the president. You know what I mean? They believe that it should be above the fray, they think, the White House. So she's getting Nixonized. She's becoming Nixon in the same problem. Anyways, back to, so Roxy, you're saying we've lost control of the Android meme, the establishment, the centralizing, the Wolf Blitzers, the CNN, the guys who can name what the word that makes the market. That has been swallowed up by Web 2.0, where anybody can do anything and be their own broadcaster. And you see it, I keep posting, there's all these people out there making YouTubes analyzing the news. And they make it quite news-like. They make themselves look like CNN. So there's a lot of energy by all kinds of people, which the regular New York Times and Washington Post will ignore. Oh, no, that's just amateurs. We're the professionals. But nobody's paying attention to them anymore. And they made a fiasco of themselves by just being blatantly against Trump. So then there's a YouTube you can watch where this ex-CIA guy comes on, and he says, Hillary and them did a coup over the last, 10, 15 years or whatever, and me and a bunch of intelligence agency guys are going to do a counter coup. And then he lays out what he did, what his team did, how they nailed Hillary, how they got together with the FBI and released all that stuff the past week. He's describing his coup right there on YouTube. I don't know if Hillary knows what his address is, but you better watch out, right? What?
Do it yourself. Cool.
Yeah. Well, he names people, and he shows one of his friends went on Sean Hannity and exposed Hillary. But this is the decentralization of information. I mean, this guy, he's making very nice videos about the coup they're doing, and they're winning, and they're going to put Trump in, and all this stuff. So it's interesting. Okay, so you sent an email going, the Android meme is taking over the economy, or took over the economy. And then you say, the financial crisis, lack of employment, laws against the people are all effects of how we lost control of the Android meme and created the apocalypse. There's not a party who's to blame. You can't blame either party, you say. Roxy says. The fact that Trump is a businessman makes people think he is the solution. Zappa was capitalist, cherished entrepreneurship. Maybe he would actually vote for Trump. Then you give a YouTube, so let's see what that is. Or some,
Voters, like my guest. He is best known.
Okay, so this is a civil rights leader stands up for Donald Trump. So what's your point there, Hillary? Are we talking to Hillary? Are you Hillary?
Well, she's a Scorpio.
Yeah, that's right, like you. So what is her birthday? It just was the other day, right? October 26th. Yeah, she's like you. Roxy's birthday is Halloween. Scorpio. Okay, so what is do I play this? Civil rights leader stands up for Donald Trump. That's sort of interesting to you?
Well, the thing is, I was surprised to see that type of person being actually pro-Trump.
Right.
Just this WikiLeaks changed the whole panorama, and I think because everybody's
Hillary's going down fast.
How wicked, how corrupt, how awful Hillary is. I mean, she shouldn't be even a candidate.
Yeah. Now, I detect from Reiner and Gale that your guys have been anti-Trump, as a respectable Canadian would be, right?
Oh, it's such a hard thing. It's such a hard judgment you're throwing at it.
Also, here in Europe...
Wait a minute, Roxy. I want to see what that
Trump is associated with white trash. So any person who doesn't want to be associated with that is anti-Trump.
Yeah. I'm an immigrant. What am I going to say?
But so is he.
What would you say? I don't know what an immigrant would say.
Yeah, an immigrant would be suspicious of Trump.
Okay. I don't think he means that. He's not very good at articulating the differences, but maybe he shouldn't be good at it when he's just being revving up an audience, make headlines. All these scandals about Trump, Ion says that Trump arranged for them to be released. He arranged for the fucking tape of him back in 2005, talking about grabbing a woman's pussy. Because Trump said the thing is to keep being talked about. Right, but he understands you have to be continuously talked about, regardless of what they say.
Well, exactly.
But I don't think most people...
And the more outrageous you make your commentary, the more likely people are going to listen, because they're listening to so much rhetoric and layers of rhetoric which doesn't have any spectacle, and Trump knows the spectacle.
Right. So you could, on the surface, no New York Times journalist is going to say, yes, I think Trump released that tape. They use the fact of what the Trump tape says to smear Trump. I mean, look at what we're saying here. I am saying that Trump released all this bad news about himself. What respectable journalist is going to believe that? I don't think that anybody would believe that. They think Trump's a normal human being that would be embarrassed by that stuff, and his ratings would go down. And they claim his ratings did go down until the WikiLeaks did. So, you can say, yeah, that's theater, but who practically would do that? I mean, I don't know if I believe Ion about that. Did Trump actually fucking put this stuff out? And then you have Ion saying that Hillary...
But
what?
I mean, someone in Trump's realm who understands media the way he does and understands television the way he does also understands controversy the way he does. And creating controversy also creates dialogue, and the dialogue is usually going to be about him, whether you're on his side or off his side. The fact is, the word Trump is everywhere because of it.
Okay, next time you meet some friend of yours who's a journalist in Toronto, you tell him, hey, Trump released those tapes. You watch his reaction. He's going to say, what have you been smoking, Reiner?
I can only imagine.
It's only here we can say, yes, of course Trump released them. Now, the other thing that Trump says, and we don't broadcast this too precisely, but it was said last week or whenever I played some Ion stuff. Hillary, there are several... Well, Ion says that the WikiLeaks stuff comes from inside the DNC. The emails come from inside the Democratic Committee, the people working for Hillary, not Russia. And he says there's already 2 of them who were killed. And there's this guy called Seth Ridge. The Fringe says, oh, yeah, he was killed. He did that. And I said, did that Seth guy get killed? He said, yep. And I said, did Hillary order it? And he said, yes. And then I said, well, what do you think of that? And then Ion says, well, we think it's great. They needed killing. So you can never know where Ion's going to take it. You're thinking that he's going to, say Hillary's a pretty evil. Now, Ion says, you didn't hear this, we said it the other day, Ion says that Hillary is not bad for the presidency because she killed people and all the normal moral, ethical stuff. She's bad because she's a trillionaire and makes money off the system, and it's just wrecking the world, the system that she takes advantage of. And then Ion said she also opened some crucibles, I don't know what that word refers to, that shouldn't have been opened. Now, we're going to pursue that and eventually find out, but that's the esoteric statement, that she opened some crucibles that shouldn't have been done, and that's why she's going to be spanked and not get the gig. So I'm just telling you what Ion says, what we live with here, the kind of statements by the representative of God, the second coming, Mr. Ion. This is how crazy. He's way worse than Alex Jones or Lynn LaRouche in terms of conspiracy talk. All right?
Conspiracy
now,
for
Reiner.
What,
yeah.
For me. Now, then, who's doing all this? Me, according to Ion. I'm organizing all this. Now, that's pretty crazy, right? And don't tell Michael Snow I said that, Reiner.
Okay.
Do you know I had an encounter with Michael Snow a few years, maybe about 2007? I don't know if I ever told you this. In New York City.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, you told us this when we visited you in New York, yeah.
Right. And then what happened is he goes back to Canada and he tells his son, he mentions me in some way, but Michael doesn't know what it means. And his kid, who's into the Church of Subgenius, freaks. What? You met the original Bob Dobbs? Holy shit, how could that? The guy's a cartoon. There's no such thing. And the kid freaks out. And he starts researching me and whatever he could find. And in the end, he never said to me, but I suspect he decided I was a total hoax and convinced Peggy and Michael that I was a hoax, and they wouldn't answer my emails anymore. So a little civil war broke out in the Snow household due to me. and the son triumphed because he took the Reverend Stang side. That was a big mistake. I bet you.
It's funny because we saw Peggy in Montreal 2 weeks ago. Next time I see Peggy or Michael, I'm going to say, oh, by the way, Bob Dobbs says hi.
And to remind them, we met down on I think it's 6th Avenue. There's an old diner, maybe around West 10th Street, on 6th Avenue or 7th Avenue. That's where we met. And that was after I spent the evening the night before talking to him, because I was able to, I analyzed his life. I said, do you realize that what happened in the art world is that the universities took it over? A lot of artists have no money, but they occasionally get a gig from a friend professor at some university who brings in, like Carol Lee, what's her name? Who was Carol Lee, the famous performance artist of the... What?
Carol Lee Schneeman, yeah.
Schneeman, yeah, Schneeman or something, right?
Yeah, Carol Lee Schneeman, yeah.
Yeah, I witnessed this with her. So they'll bring Carol Lee in, and she'll get to talk about what her great performance days at Judge in Church or something, and then she goes back home and starves. While the professor who brought her in has got mortgages and tenure and all kinds of money. So it flipped in the information world, in the culture world. The professors are the ones who advantage from art, and you guys or whoever's out in the street making stuff might be part of an interesting movement for a few months or a year, and then they're obsolesced by the next movement, and all they can be is a guest to be brought before the students as a museum piece. So I was aware of that process. So I meet Michael Snow. I said, that all started in the 70s. And you know who? I witnessed the beginning of it. I saw this. I was at the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. I used to go to their talks, and they bring in artists. One day they brought in this woman, and she proposed this whole thing that the artists' network of having them come and do forums and be part of the university thing. I don't know what exactly it was that she was setting up, but it was the first time I heard that, and I think it was the first time. And I said, this woman began the system where artists are just guests in museum pieces for the university system, to be brought in to show the students there is a culture out there, and there are creative people, but you can't be creative because it's the 80s and the 90s, and there's no jobs left, so you just become a professor is the best gig you can be if you want to be in the culture world. So I laid that all to him, and I said, you know who that woman was? He goes, no. I said, Peggy Gale. And Peggy was sitting in a chair in a tavern around the corner. So I exposed Peggy right to Michael, right there. But he knew that. Wow. But it was sort of fun. You get my point?
I do. I'm part of that.
Yeah. So, big part. Yeah. Do you remember? I don't know if you were in the art world in the early 70s when she was part of Art Metropole, I think, and they would go around.
I was
so you know what I'm talking about. You might have witnessed it.
Yeah, of course I do. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't become successful professionally, like you did, you're a fringe guy like your brother, right? Isn't he kind of a semi-artist or never made it to, right?
Never tried to make it.
Never tried.
He never tried to. He gave up on it because he wasn't going to, I don't know, he didn't go the normal way.
No, he didn't give up. He makes art consistently for the past 40 years. He just doesn't want to make it into anything else than what he does.
Right. He's not going to make a living from it.
He doesn't try. He doesn't want. He has no interest. It's quite interesting.
Yeah,
it's like...
Right, yeah. No, I was going to ask you about him, but just a second here. I got to find Roxy. She dropped off, and occasionally the phones will drop off, so I got to bring her back in. She got muted. Or she got... that dropped off. Yeah, let me see. Is that it? Is that you, Roxy?
Yeah.
Okay, good. So did you hear on the computer what we've been talking about, or did you miss it? You heard? Okay, good. So I really enjoyed doing that to Michael, saying, you married the enemy. And, it was just in jest, but I meant it, but he didn't have much to say about it. He said, I hear what you're saying. So if you ever see her again, tell her that they met me in the diner restaurant, on the west side, down near the village, and that her son exposed me. That might remind her of it.
Oh yeah, I'll play that with her. Yeah,
it'd be interesting. Okay, so back to why do we get onto that?
I
just said, you wouldn't. Yeah, ask Peggy if she realizes that Trump released those tapes of exposing him. Ask her that.
Sure.
Okay.
She's supposed to be an authority on performance art. That should be a good question to throw at her.
Yeah, it's her field.
When Trump started, my whole thing that I used to tell people was, if artists are supposed to mirror society, if that's what they are, and if that's what a good artist does, is mirror society, then Trump is the greatest performance artist America has ever seen.
Well, you know what I was saying 6 months ago? Once I became aware of this, I wasn't tracking it. Ian told me a year ago that watched Trump, and I wasn't interested. And then when in the spring, when I started, I looked at one of his YouTubes and I died laughing. I couldn't believe this guy was talking. He wouldn't finish his sentences. He sort of interacted like I did when you're interacting with the audience. He's looking, responding, and very discontinuous. So after a while, I saw that he was doing pretty good, so I made this statement. It's my policy statement. Trump is the greatest scientist/artist today. And I got a whole technical explanation of why that is, but you're touching on it, Lauren, with saying that. You got close to Dobbsian wisdom there with that statement.
Hey, must be the drop.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Yeah, in an information society. Did you know that he's on the drops?
Yeah, I am. Is Trump on the drops?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Really?
Yeah. Yes. It started about 8 months ago. Ion told us that his daughter, the smart daughter, Ivanka, is it? The one they like, the blonde? She's a pretty interesting person. She was aware of our show. She listened to it. She got her mother and ex-mother and the rest of the women in the Trump household on the drops. Now, when you exhale the drops, it affects who's ever in the apartment. So Donald Trump was surrounded by RNA drops exhalation, so he got affected. Now he's actually taking them. And
that's awesome.
3 weeks ago, listen to this, 3 weeks ago, JW got an email. Wait, what are you saying? I don't want to drown out your response. Yeah, listen to this. 3 weeks ago, JW got an email from Melania Trump thanking us for our support. Think of that.
Awesome.
How the fuck did they get JW's email? That ain't available. JW's a billionaire. He ain't fucking putting his email out there. And I asked Ion, how did they get the email? And he said, well, Bob, they got surveillance. They have intelligence activities, and intelligence levels can find out anybody. So they definitely know about JW. Before Ion showed up, when I was becoming a friend of JW, he'd be racing home late at night, going down the Atlanta highway at 150 miles an hour with an escort. And I said, you don't have to follow laws. He said, no way. I mean, he owns the governor and whatever, the mayor and all that stuff. So he could speed home at 150 hours. And so we'd be talking, and he was fully aware that he was monitored. So he would go, he'd say something, then he'd say his name. He said, now spell that right. And he could spell out his name to nobody while he was talking to me because, he felt that he was being monitored all the time. And he's got all kinds of good stories about what Bush and them tried to do to him. But anyways, so it's not a surprise to JW that they would get his email. So anyways, Melania, the wife, emailed and thanked us, Bob and Carolyn and Ion and JW, for our support of Trump. Now, how's that? How's that for? That should tell you something, Dr. Beater.
Boy, oh boy.
That's and then the guy's on drops. That's why they're saying this guy's a maniac. He's up all night tweeting. He can't fucking sleep. He's on the drops. He probably is the kind of body that can't sleep. You know, it energizes some people like that.
Hello.
But what I like about you commenting on Trump is that you're not only commenting on Trump as an individual. And that's why I said I liked your post on the Marshall McLuhan group, because usually people attack Trump as an individual, and you were saying all the time, answering all those posts, it's not about Trump and explaining
why.
Not
about his chemical body. Yeah, it's about his image and how he juggles his four bodies, the chip body, the astral body, the TV body, and his chemical body. And everybody projects their personal disgust with what they think is a chemical body, but they're reacting to the image, the TV and chip body information scale. That's something different. Yeah, I talk technically about it. Hey, did you know we became American citizens, Gail?
No, I didn't know.
Well.
Yeah, August 17th, Dr. Dean and Bob became American citizens. Now we're eligible to vote if we had registered, but I don't give a fuck about it. I'm never going to vote. I never did, and we didn't sign up. But that's part of my detachment about it. I'm not that involved in it. But you know, I can explain it. But and then have Ion's extra input. So let me see, Roxy, your email where you talk about that. Let's see. So you say, oh yeah, we're going to play this YouTube. Or did we almost? Oh, civil rights leader. Okay, we don't need to play that. Just the civil rights guy. So then the next one, you have Trump's media metanoia. So what's that one about? Let's click on that. This video will get Donald Trump elected. It's 27 minutes long. What is that? Is that about his biography?
Now you have to tell me.
Yeah, they're showing. It's his footage. Now, do we? Why do you point this one out? This is like a campaign biography, 27 minutes long. What do you want to say about it? Roxy, you. What, did she get knocked off? No. Oh, maybe. Is that you? Where is Roxy? That's odd. Wait a minute. Nobody's here. Maybe I get knocked off. Oh, okay, good.
Jill and Ron are here, but we're getting tired.
Yeah, it's 1:30. It's
okay.
For us, it's 1:30 in the morning. We might have to sign off.
No, that's good, though. You contribute a lot. Now, is this Bert? I think we knocked off Bert, or there's an anonymous person here. I don't know what happened to Roxy. Let's see. Did she write an email? Okay. Okay, so what? This 20.
I need some coffee. That's what.
Okay, so Bert, you've been listening but not able to talk for an hour? Yeah, you've heard everything.
I'll be back in just 2 minutes, okay?
Okay. Well, I'm asking you, wait a minute. The 27-minute video about his life, what do you call that? Media metanoia. What's your point?
Well, actually, if you listen to all his statements, he sort of sounds coherent, and it's the whole of Trump before people will ask him, "Do you want to be a president?" He no, never, ever, and
right.
And I think it's quite interesting. Before the election, you have all this resume of what he has said, and usually the press is concentrating, and they just publish, for example, in the New York Times, I don't know how many pages of all his insults.
Yeah, the 270 insults, right.
But he has also been quite coherent in many of the things he said.
Yeah.
So
this is, and metanoia means retracing. So this is the media retracing Trump's arc. You know, his trajectory.
So maybe, well, maybe you can just play something and then you can comment or...
While you're in the kitchen. Okay, so let's see. It started off, let's see what this is. Okay, I'll just start playing at the 4-minute mark. Uh-oh, it's been...
Well, Ryder and I are going to say goodnight.
Okay, let me stop it.
Sleep night.
Okay,
yeah.
So you've contributed to the discussion of Frank and tactility. That was really good, and Napoleon Oliveros and all the stuff. So if you're interested, Ryan...
One day I'll be able to have other kinds of conversations with Ion.
Yeah. But I always remember, you can say the more intelligent you are in your question frustrates sometimes the interaction. You just keep it simple and you can say anything. Like you could say, why do we breathe? And you'll find out that oxygen is not necessary. You know?
Yeah.
No, really. Ion says oxygen's going out. But
I heard that on one of the archives. Yeah.
Tell that to Peggy Gale. See if Peggy can handle that one. But Ryder, we did 188 hours, and Gale, over time you might want to listen to chips of it. It's pretty good. Roxy has a lot of interesting things to say. Bert has interesting stuff to say. It's a very unique interpretation of Zappa.
Yeah, I have listened to many hours of the archives.
That's great.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to do some homework, man, but this other life gets in the way.
Hours and hours drawing, listening to the archives of Ion.
That's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Well, that's good. You get work done, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's our service. We have created hours and hours of the new work situation. Many people have jobs where they just have to sit around. They don't have to do much, but they love having hours of us to listen to, and they're allowed to listen to stuff. So we provide endless hours on that stuff.
Yeah, and I've been super enjoying that. And when we get to Hawaii in January, we can reboot some more.
All right. Yes, I can give you the hidden story, which you have not heard.
No, well, we are totally pumped. We're totally pumped to be in Hawaii soon. So.
All right. Well, very good. So. And even Lauren's coming, right?
Yeah. In the meantime, I'm going to do everything I can to apply to go to a good school. But
okay, in what country?
This country.
He doesn't want to come back to Canada.
Yeah, you're in the States, right, Lauren?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in California.
Yeah. What
school would be... Okay, well, we'll talk about that later. So, all right, well, thanks for contributing. And come back on next week and keep asking Ion. I tell you, you don't need to be paired.
Yeah, next week we're traveling, so I won't be able to get on next week, but we will get on again soon.
Yeah, I'm saying that...
Oh, no, wait a minute. Yeah, Gail said we're not... No, actually, we can make on next Saturday because we're not leaving till Sunday. Yeah, we're leaving on Sunday morning, so we will get on for a couple hours. Yeah.
The main message here is that the quality of, there's no such good question. I've had some of the best answers come out of Ion from people who really didn't even know how to talk, but they just kept it simple, asked some basic stuff, and worked. So you don't have to come up with smart-sounding questions.
Well, it's not just smart-sounding. I didn't have anything to ask.
Well, make up stuff. Why do we need to breathe? On behalf of others.
I've got a question for next time.
Yeah, the guilt already. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm saying, Ryan, say questions that other people might be interested in, even though you're not interested.
Okay.
See, that's how you do it.
I can totally do that. All right, good. Okay, great.
Well, I'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, and
you're now famous.
If Carolyn's there, say goodnight.
Yeah, here she comes.
Yeah.
Hey, Carolyn.
Yeah, good night. I'm holding the fort down here while Bob flies all over the world.
Well, and we love you for it. We'll see you in January in the flesh.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for hanging out.
Oh,
okay.
Great.
So, yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
So what was I going to say? Yeah. So we now, Carolyn, we have to move towards more than human. So, I was saying, and Bert, you're there, right? You'll be there to respond to
yes.
this. Lauren, did Lauren go too?
No, I'm here.
Okay. Now Gail and Reiner will be famous because they're going to be part of the Zappa historical archive, the 188 hours. Now they're part of the next edition, getting up to 200 hours. They'll be on it. They'll be part of this Zappa dialogue. So, Bert,
Excellent.
while we wait for Roxy, do you have anything you wanted to say about anything we were saying?
I was just going to comment on Reiner about what you were trying to explain to them, is that how our subjects go around the globe. I mean, we start off with Zappa and talking about Trump, but we went all around. That's part of the matrix of engaging you and Ion on Payday, is that you really cover so many different subjects, but it always is a point behind it. There's always a link. And that's what's can be frustrating for someone first coming on, but if you hang around enough, you actually see the point. And actually the point is that there's so many points. And that's what's unique about Ion. I think you brought it out, is that Ion, you can ask them a question, a basic question, and they will take you all around. But it's just changing your perception, and that's what what I wanted to say. That's the point I wanted to say, is that Ion changes our perception. Because I read this week in Don Thiel about, he was making a point of, it blew me away, that 1837, 1838, 1839 was when the telegraph, Morse code, and photography was created, and how that was the beginning of virtual reality. And that just blew me away, because I'm like, that long ago, he made a link of how it is. And then now we're dealing with Ion, which is basically, Ion is erasing all of that and changing our perception.
Bert, and the tiny note chart, my chart, that's why it begins in 1840.
Wow.
Because of those inventions.
Yes.
Yeah. I have the LaRouche quadrant goes from 1840 to 1900. McLuhan goes from 1900 to 1918. Thompson goes 1918 to 1945. Croker's 45 to 60. And then the Dobbs quadrant is 60 to 90. That's the 5 phases in the chart. But definitely 1840 is a good year. It's the height of the British Empire, that, Big Brother's secret society stuff. Plus the bottom-up technological effects are coming in. The virtual reality of the photograph and the telegraph. And what's the third thing? The photograph, the telegraph. Is there a third? The Morse code.
Morse code.
No,
Morse
the
code.
Telegraph, the photograph. What's the third thing?
Morse code.
No, that's the telegraph.
Okay, but that's what I was just linking to what Don Thiel laid out from 37, 38, and 39. He laid them out.
Well, maybe Morse code leads into cryptography or something. But, Samuel Morse invented the telegraph, and Morse code was the way you worked it. So there's basically telegraph, which is non-visual, and the eye is the photograph. So you get the eye-ear, virtual reality starts right around 1840. So, so we're... I'm going to play a little... did Roxy come back yet?
Yes.
No statement. Okay. I'm going to play a little Trump here. Okay, good. Let's play a little Trump here.
Somebody else do it. I just don't know if the somebody else is there. I don't know if we have the kind of advocate that you need. We need major surgery. This country needs major surgery.
Are you the surgeon?
I like that. I hate to say major surgery. I'm going to move it back a bit. He's quoting me. Holy shit. We're just going to find out he's quoting me. He's been monitoring me all these years using my lines. Okay, just going to move it back a little and get what's the context of this. It's spinning. Who's typing? Is that Lauren?
Yeah, sorry, I'm muted.
Muted. I'll have to click this again. It's spinning. They're calling this the long road to the White House.
Would you like to be the President of the United States?
I really don't believe I would run it, but I would like to see somebody as the President who could do the job, and there are very capable people in this country.
Why wouldn't you dedicate yourself to public service?
Because I think it's a very mean life. I would love and I would dedicate my life to this country, but I see it as being a mean life, and I also see it as somebody with strong views and somebody with the kind of views that are maybe a little bit unpopular, which may be right, but may be unpopular, wouldn't necessarily have a chance of getting elected against somebody with no great brain but a big smile.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
You've said, though, that if you did run for president, you believe you'd win.
Well, I don't know. I think I'd win. I tell you what, I wouldn't go in to lose. I've never gone in to lose in my life. And if I did decide to do it, I think I'd be inclined. I would say that I would have a hell of a chance of winning, because I think people, I don't know how your audience feels, but I think people are tired of seeing the United States ripped off. And I can't promise you everything, but I can tell you one thing. This country would make one hell of a lot of money from those people that for 25 years have taken advantage. It wouldn't be the way it's been, believe me.
But you might be classified as an Eastern Republican. Fair?
Well, I guess you could say that, yes.
Which means kind of a Rockefeller, Chase Manhattan Republican?
I never thought of it under those terms.
How do you define? Are you a Bush Republican?
No, I think I'm really, the people that I do best with are the people that drive the taxis. Wealthy people don't like me, because I'm competing against them all the time, and they don't like me. I like to win. The fact is, I go down the streets of New York, and the people that really like me are the taxi drivers and the workers, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, I really get it.
Then why are you a Republican?
I have no idea. I mean, I am a Republican because I just believe in certain principles of the Republican Party.
You have flirted with the idea of politics. Now you're here at your first national convention. Does that get you interested in possibly making the plunge?
Now you have to tell me something. Who told you I flirted?
Well,
I didn't know that I flirted with.
Well, you took out full-page ads in the New York Times to talk about your foreign policy. Some people would say...
I do feel very strongly about the country. I love the country.
You've become a role model in this country. The reason that your book sells, the reason that your board game sells, is because people are looking to leaders. People are looking for values, and you're one of the people. And it's you may dismiss it, but people are talking about, Donald Trump for president. What they're really talking about is Donald Trump, show us the way. Be the true white hat.
I'm, again, somebody that has a good instinct financially. I have had historically. I followed markets. I've been going the right direction, whether it's New York real estate or stocks or whatever. I know from a common sense financial standpoint that something has to burst. When a country is losing billions and billions and billions of dollars a year, and when other countries are making hundreds of billions of dollars, something is going to burst, and it's going to start here. I know it. It's a question of when. To me, it's not a question if, it's a question of when. And unless we're going to solve our problem, and the problem is caused by our allies, unless we're going to solve that problem, this country is in very, very big trouble. And I'm not talking recession kind of trouble. I'm talking depression kind of trouble.
Would you really like to take over and run the country as you have run your organization?
I would much prefer that somebody else do it. I just don't know if somebody else is there. I don't know if we have the kind of advocate that you need. We need major surgery. This country needs major surgery.
Are you the surgeon?
I think I do a fantastic job, but I really would prefer not doing it.
Are you saying you will take it only if drafted?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I hope that somebody comes along who can be an advocate, and I think that somebody will be so popular.
But you haven't seen it.
He or she will be the most. But I don't see it now. I wish that person were there. But again, I do know one thing. It's not a question. This country is losing hundreds of billions. It's not a question if, it's a question when.
I have never understood how this is possible. I have never understood how somebody throughout this country didn't sue the United States government and have that overturned. And you had people, investors, investing over a 10-year period for under a set of conditions. And this is, as I was talking before, playing the game. We're all playing by a certain set of rules. The rules were changed for the government, but they weren't changed for us. I mean, it was an incredible circumstance that happened. And people went bust by the hundreds of thousands. And I hope you weren't one of them in terms of that, but obviously you know a lot of people that were. They changed the rules on taxes. And you have some incredible situations where people guaranteed personally a stream of payments to be paid over a 10-year period based on a stream of tax benefits for perhaps a very good job, like a low-income housing development. Nothing wrong with that, a very positive thing. And after 2 years, they got wiped out with the taxes, and yet they still owed all of this money. And most of these people had to declare bankruptcy. They couldn't pay it.
I deal with foreigners all the time. I deal with foreign leaders all the time. I know many of the foreign leaders probably better than a lot of the so-called candidates that are running on the Republican and Democratic tickets. I think I'd get along very well with them, and I think you'd have a lot less gridlock in Washington if I decide to do this and if I won. You know, nobody talks about the soldiers that are coming back with no arms and no legs. And I saw at Mar-a-Lago on Mondays, I make Mar-a-Lago my club that you know about.
In Palm Beach.
I make that twice now. On a Monday, I let returning Iraqi injured soldiers come to the premises. The most beautiful people I've ever seen, but they're missing arms and legs. They're with their wives. Sometimes they're with their girlfriends, and the tears are coming down the faces of these people. Well, I just hate what's happened to this country. We've gone to a country that's no longer respected. We're in a war that we should have never... And by the way, I'm worse than any hawk there is in terms of military and in terms of defending ourselves. But Saddam Hussein didn't knock down the World Trade Center. He had nothing to do with it. And there were no weapons of mass destruction.
The other day, the head of 3M said that President Obama is anti-business. Do you get the same feeling that he does?
Well, I don't know that it's anti-business or he just really doesn't know exactly what to do. And I'm afraid it probably is the second thing. I don't see him necessarily as anti-business. I think that he is not sophisticated in the ways of business. He hasn't dealt with the people that you've dealt with and that I've dealt with. I deal with China, as an example, a lot. It is never easy. And I've made some very big deals with the Chinese. I've come out on top. I've come out in great shape. I sell apartments to Chinese people. I get along great with them. It's not like, anti-China. I just think it's ridiculous that we allow them to do what they're doing to this country with the manipulation of the currency that you write about and understand, and all of the other things that they do. And frankly, if I were them and if I could get away with it, I take my hat off to them, frankly. They do get away with it. And I hire companies all the time, and it's so hard for our companies to compete against Chinese companies. I mean, these companies have such an advantage, whether it's glass for a curtain wall or whether it's, and you use the term because you know what's happened, sheetrock. I mean, they used to give us sheetrock, just give it. And everybody that was unfortunate enough to use Chinese sheetrock had problems. I mean, problems like where people were dying from it. The good news, Steve, our product is much better. But with the manipulation of their currency, it's very, very, very hard for our companies to compete. But I'll certainly do whatever is necessary and however I can help, whether they want me to make speeches, whether they want me to contribute, raise money. I'll do whatever I have to do. We need somebody great as a president.
I know that you were mentioning that Aaron and I did a kind of an interesting video not that long ago in August about how things have fallen apart. But at that point, the only people who were saying it were us and you.
I was saying it. I was saying it a long time ago. And frankly, they're talking about 50 basis points. I think you should drop it a point, a full, solid 100 basis points, and just sit back and see. And I was actually looking at somebody, a gentleman from Goldman Sachs was saying 175. So that's going to be interesting. But I think that's ultimately going to be happy. And it would be nice if Ben could get now ahead of the curve instead of always being behind the curve. He's behind the curve. Say what you want about Alan Greenspan. He was always slightly ahead of the curve. And that was always brilliant. And he had this incredible reputation. I think Ben has to get a little bit ahead of the curve. He has to do something dramatic. And I really think what he should do is surprise the hell out of everyone and do it 100. And let's see what happens.
That would be big. Any politician, do you think, has the pulse? Anyone running for president has the pulse of what you know about the economy?
Well, the biggest problem is something I never hear about. I told you about it once. Every time they lower interest rates, the cartel, because I call it a cartel, the illegal monopoly, raises oil prices, okay? So the monopoly, because that's all it is, it's a total illegal monopoly. If businesses ever formed OPEC, everybody would be put in jail. Here they are, and every time a country hits oil, they're invited in to the cartel, okay? It's a disgrace. So what happens is every time interest rates go down, oil prices go up, and it's the same number. I mean, practically the same money. So they lower it, they raise it. They lower it, they raise it. Now you have oil that's close to 100, going to be over 100, and nobody in this country calls and says, get that damn oil price down. You get it down. But I have to tell you that our country is in serious, serious trouble. We owe $17 trillion on debt. How do you pay off $17 trillion? Nobody ever heard the expression a number of years ago. The word trillion. We have debt that's beyond belief. We have deficits that nobody can even comprehend. China, which I've been talking about for the last 5 years, yesterday, right in our face, they just devalued their currency. Now, for those that don't understand devaluation, what they're basically doing is saying, we're really ripping you big league. Nobody's ever done it better than us, but now we're going to really do it again. And the reason they did it, and everybody was surprised by it, was because our leadership is so weak and so pathetic that they can get away with it. And believe me, they're taking our jobs, and they're taking a big league. And China's not the only one. You look at other countries, they're all doing the same thing. They have no respect for our leader, and frankly, they have no respect any longer for our great country. And it's so simple to solve. What we need is a strong economy. What we need is jobs. Now, you hear these phony job numbers, 6.7%. The 6.7% is probably 21 or 22% real numbers. When you give up looking for a job, it's like they consider you employed. It's amazing. They changed this. You know, in the old days, if you had people that couldn't find work, they couldn't find work. Today, such a huge number. Now you look at what's going on with Afghanistan. You have Karzai that's treating our president like he doesn't even exist. So they make a deal, and I'm not advocating stay, because frankly, I want to build this country. I want to build these schools. I don't want to build a school in Afghanistan, a road going to the school, watch it get built up and then blown up 4 times, And they keep rebuilding and rebuilding. And you go to Brooklyn, New York, and you can't have schools. You go to Iowa, you can. You go to wherever you go, and you can't have schools. Because we don't have any money, because we're spending it in other places where, frankly, they don't want us, and I don't want them. And it's amazing. Our country is in serious trouble. We don't have victories anymore. We used to have victories, but we don't have them. When was the last time anybody saw us beating, let's say, China in a trade deal? They kill us. I beat China all the time. All the time. When did we beat Japan at anything? They send their cars over by the millions. And what do? When was the last time you saw a Chevrolet in Tokyo? It doesn't exist, folks. They beat us all the time. When do we beat Mexico at the border? They're laughing at us, at our stupidity. And now they're beating us economically. They are not our friend, believe me. But they're killing us economically. The U.S. has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. Thank you. It's true. Islamic terrorism is eating up large portions of the Middle East. They become rich. I'm in competition with them. They just built a hotel in Syria. Can you believe this? They built a hotel. When I have to build a hotel, I pay interest. They don't have to pay interest because they took the oil that when we left Iraq, I said we should have taken. So now ISIS has the oil. And what they don't have, Iran has. And in and I will tell you this, and I said it very strongly, years ago, I said, and I love the military, and I want to have the strongest military that we've ever had, and we need it more now than ever, but I said, don't hit Iraq, because you're going to totally destabilize the Middle East. Iran is going to take over the Middle East. Iran and somebody else will get the oil, and it turned out that Iran is now taking over Iraq. Think of it. Iran is taking over Iraq, and they're taking it over big league. We spent $2 trillion in Iraq. $2 trillion. We lost